Aloha and welcome everyone. This is the July meeting of the Kona Community Development Plan Action Committee. I want to welcome everybody here and thank the people who are online on today's agenda as well. Generally, before I start, I do an olelo noeau just to set the pace for the meeting. But today I just want to just recite two what I guess are mottos. One from Honolulu, from the Board of Water Supply, which is Kawaiola, and the one from Hawaii is Kawaio Kane. And both refer some to the subject that we're going to speak about today, which is water. So I want to welcome everybody and guests online and present. First, we're going to do roll call. So well, let's talk about the interactive things first. So we're on interactive conference call. So those of you who are, if there's anyone there wanting to testify or comment at the end, please indicate by letting our staff know so they can call on you. And generally, public testimony at the chair's discretion. I usually take the public testimony while we are discussing the business matter, but today we have a presentation. So what I'd like to ask everybody here present to, including committee members, to let's hold our questions and answers till after the presentation, so that we can get it through uninterrupted. So roll call. I'm going to ask our committee members to introduce themselves. My name first, I'm the chair. My name is Charles Young. I reside in Kealia. I'll go with the Nancy.
CTO Vice Chair, and I live in Keho.
I'm Charlotte Thompson, and I'm just on the committee. I live in Kona.
John?
I'm John Pelletier, Action Committee member. I live in Ooma.
Heather?
Heather Karate in Captain Cook.
Dave?
David Huerta. I live in Kona, Koloko area.
Thank you, committee members and staff.
Hello, I'm Cabello with the Planning Department Long Range Division. Perhaps a couple of online questions.
Okay. Is Miriam online?
Hi, I'm Mariam with Planning Department. We also have Jessica Lahip on hosting Zoom for us today. And Janice, I believe, also is online. Janice Hota with Planning Department Long Range staff.
Okay, great. So just housekeeping, cell phones off, please. I've already requested that people who want to testify in person, it would be helpful if you sign up for testimony here, and we'll try and take you in the order in which you signed up. And of course, everyone online, please indicate if you have any comments so that our staff here can recognize you. So the first thing is the approval of the minutes for May 13th and for June 10th. I think we have to take that separately under two motions.
So which one are we approving first?
May 13th.
Motion to approve May 13th minutes.
I'll second it.
Any comment? Dave?
No.
No? Any comment, Heather? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes for May 13th, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Nay?
Aye.
Nay, hearing none, the motion is carried. Now we need a move to approve the June 10th meeting.
Motion to approve June 10th, 2025 draft minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion and seconded. Any discussion, committee?
No.
No? All in favor of approving the minutes for the June 16th, 2025 meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Nay? Okay, hearing none, then the minutes of the June 10th meeting are approved. So we have pretty much one major thing on the business agenda today. I want to welcome Ciara Kahahane from the CWRM, and I think you may have some staff online, I think, as well. And I want to thank you all for the presentation that you're making for this committee and for the public today. I know you guys scheduled are very busy. I think the business is about the Keoho Aquifer Adaptive Management Plan, which I believe is in the state of proposal and gathering information. In this presentation, I think is generally to have that presentation for the public to make them aware. So as I said, during the presentation, I'd like people just to hold questions, and then we'll do a question, answer, comment after the presentation is completed. So I wanted to introduce Ciara Kahahane. She's the Deputy Director of the Commission for Water Resource Management for the state. And so I'll let you go ahead and take it from here, Ciara.
Okay, mahalo. Yes, I'm Kira Kahahane. I've been in this position as Deputy Director of CWRM since October of 2024. With me here today are a couple members of my staff. I think they may not speak. I think they're just sitting in. But Ryan Imata is here. He's our groundwater branch chief. And I saw Neil Fujii joined us as well. He's in our planning branch. We have 3 branches as an agency. Also with us here today is Peter Adler. He's of Guild Consulting. He's our consultant who's been helping us facilitate this adaptive management plan and get all of the moving pieces together and pushing forward. And his administrative assistant, Stephanie Sang, I think I also saw on the call. So I'm going to show some slides. I do apologize. These are from a presentation that I gave to the commission back in April, on April 1st. So I'm going to go through the slides and we'll have some updated information for you on where we are in the planning process, and then we'll be available to take any questions. Okay, is everyone able to see that okay?
Yes.
All right. So about the commission, for those who may not know, the Commission on Water Resource Management is under the Department of Land and Natural Resources. We are a state agency. We're created by the Hawaii Constitution, actually, Article 11, Section 7 of the Hawaii Constitution. Our governing statute is Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 174C, also called the State Water Code. We're the primary agency that is responsible for overseeing the regulation and protection of all of Hawaii's freshwater resources. That means groundwater and surface water, as well as planning for the allocation of those resources. We work with the counties and with the Department of Agriculture and Department of Hawaiian Homelands to discover or reassess what their needs are for the future and to ensure that we're all working in coordination to plan responsible development and use of Hawaii's freshwater resources. We have 2 forms of regulatory authority. One is through the designation of a water management area, and outside of designated areas, we issue well construction and pump installation permits, and we issue stream diversion works and stream channel alteration permits. So that's for everything from, the wells that are being constructed out in Hawaiian Paradise Park, for example, individual wells, large-scale wells that are used by the Hawaii County Department of Water Supply, and then, of course, any stream diversion would also come before us. Within a designated water management area, we issue water use permits, and that's for any use of water with very few exceptions. There is an exception for catchment, which I think is particularly appropriate on Hawaii Island, but there are no designated water management areas on Hawaii Island at present. So our authority is just over well construction and pump installation permits and the stream diversion works permits and stream channel alterations. So I hope I didn't get too much into the weeds there, but that's essentially what our agency does. So now I want to talk about why we're here today and what the purpose of our Keauhou Adaptive Management Plan is. And first, I'm going to talk about why we're choosing to do it, and particularly why we're choosing to do it in Keauhou. So, groundwater. It's an incredibly important resource. It feeds springs, fish ponds, alkaline pools, reefs. Traditional and customary practices rely on these systems. And of course, we rely on these systems for our drinking water as well. And development pressure is increasing statewide and, of course, in the Kona area. Sustainable groundwater management is more important than ever, particularly given the changes that we're seeing in rainfall patterns as our climate becomes different than it was in years past. Housing and economic growth, of course, need groundwater, but so do these cultural practices and so do these ecosystems. In years past, the National Park Service filed a petition for the designation of Keauhou Aquifer System in the Kona region as a groundwater management area. That petition was eventually denied in 2017 by the commission, but there is a continued interest in development of these resources and of course a continued interest in protecting these resources. Keauhou is the home to Kaloko-Honokohau National Historical Park and its unique ecosystems, as well as other important ecosystems throughout the aquifer system. Keauhou was identified as an aquifer system that it was in need of more detailed assessment by Hawaii County back in 2011, and that continues to be the case for several reasons. Meanwhile, the commission, also called CWRM, has certain public trust responsibilities under the Hawaii Constitution and our governing statute. So we are responsible for ensuring the protection of public trust purposes, which are maintenance of waters in their natural state, traditional and customary rights of Native Hawaiians, adequate reserves of water for Hawaiian homelands, and domestic use. Native Hawaiian water rights, among other types of rights like appurtenant rights, are recognized in our statute specifically in section 174C-101. And we have an affirmative duty as an agency to ensure the protection of these rights at every stage of the planning and decision-making process. At the same time, we do have a duty to promote the reasonable and beneficial use of water resources to maximize their social and economic benefits to the people of the state. With the reminder from the Hawaii Supreme Court that maximum use doesn't necessarily mean the maximum consumptive use. Protection of resources can also constitute use. And so the balance that we're always trying to strike as an agency is the most equitable, reasonable, and beneficial allocation of state water resources. Now, in regulating groundwater resources, we primarily use something called the sustainable yield. And the sustainable yield is defined in our statute as the maximum rate at which water may be withdrawn from a water source without impairing the utility or quality of the water source as determined by the commission. These are set in a plan that our agency updates periodically. It's called the Water Resource Protection Plan. And sustainable yields guide water planning and regulation by prescribing limits to the development and use of public water resources. So once withdrawals approach the sustainable yield, we typically start thinking about whether or not an area should be designated as a water management area to enable us to more closely regulate water use in that area. The current sustainable yield for Keauhou is 38 million gallons per day. The current pumping from Keauhou is somewhere south of 15 million gallons a day. It's about 14 and change. So we're below the sustainable yield, but we're also evaluating if and how forecasted rainfall and a different methodology for determining sustainable yield might impact the current number of 38 million gallons a day. Keauhou also is home to different aquifer bodies. So it's not all just one body of water down there. There are at least three different aquifer bodies that interact with each other. So how can we regulate these separate water bodies and the water resources of Keauhou responsibly, keeping in mind that the system is much more complex? I'm just going to briefly go over the Kapa'akaio Ka'aina decision. This decision is relevant to us, and to all state agencies because it's about the protection of traditional and customary Native Hawaiian rights. And in the case, Kapa'akaio Ka'aina versus Land Use Commission, the Hawaii Supreme Court set out a three-step analysis that agencies are required to engage in to ensure the protection and consideration of traditional and customary Native Hawaiian practices. This analysis essentially boils down to identifying what the valued cultural resources are, including those practices in the area, assess what the impacts could be of the agency's action. In this case, it was a land use boundary amendment, and then to implement feasible protections to ensure that those rights are not being infringed upon. So since that case first came out, this doctrine has evolved, and the Supreme Court has recognized that the protections that are given to Native Hawaiian traditional and customary rights and practices are flexible. So they're supposed to adapt to the particular context or the situation where they're implicated. Back to the challenges of groundwater. Why is Kapa'akai so difficult in the context of groundwater? Well, it's less studied than surface water. You can't see it most of the time, and it's not well understood. So there is a need for more data about these resources, especially the deep confined aquifer, which remains very mysterious. How interconnected are these resources? How does the basal aquifer interact with the others? Where do these aquifers discharge? So water will leak out at the shore near the coast, and it feeds those coastal ecosystems. But exactly where that discharge is occurring and what aquifer that discharge is coming from is not completely established. There can be both localized and regional impacts from well development. So you might have impacts within, a 1 mile radius of the well, but all of the wells in a given aquifer add up to what could be a regional impact. So it's not necessarily that you can look at the impact of one well by itself. You have to look at the cumulative impacts. What are all of these withdrawals added together doing? And another complicating factor is groundwater often lags. So you might withdraw water today, and the impacts of that withdrawal might not be seen for 1 year or even 5 years or more. So it becomes difficult to regulate these groundwater resources when you don't fully know what the impacts of withdrawal might be 5 or 10 years down the road. This is a little illustration that shows some of the different theories of that deep confined aquifer and how it interacts with the other aquifers in Keauhou. So this was a study done by the U.S. Geological Survey back in 2021. And you can kind of see how this water, it's either leaking out to the coast from the deep confined, or maybe it's the basal lens that is leaking out to the coast. There are a few different theories for what exactly is going on out in Keauhou. So the limitations of sustainable yield. We currently use a model for sustainable yield called RAM, or the Robust Analytical Model. And this model has utility in that it's easy and inexpensive to use, and it does have some probative value. It gives us important data about the aquifer, but there are things that it doesn't account for. It doesn't account for example, for the spatial variation in pumping. So it assumes that all of the withdrawals from an aquifer are being spread out evenly, and that's not the case in reality. There are typically wells clustered in a specific area. They're not distributed perfectly evenly across the aquifer. RAM allows for approximately 50% of recharge. So all of the rain and other water that is coming into the aquifer, half of that approximately is allowed to discharge to the coast. But groundwater dependent ecosystems like coral reefs and ancholine ponds and limu are not specifically addressed by this methodology. So we've recognized the need as an agency for better modeling and better incorporation of groundwater dependent ecosystems and traditional and customary practices into our methodology for estimating how much groundwater is actually available. The goal of RAM is to maximize water withdrawals and prevent saltwater intrusion, but it starts from the perspective of asking how much water can be extracted from the aquifer. That's the opposite of what we do with streams, where we look at how much water should remain in the stream. And so part of the effort that we're putting forward here is to start considering, what are the practices, what are the uses of water, even if that use is, the preservation of the ecosystem, what are the uses of water that we're trying to protect? And that's designed to bring this, our regulation of groundwater into more consistency with how we regulate surface water, looking at the practices or the uses that we're trying to protect instead of just ensuring the maximum water withdrawal. Okay, so that brings me back to the Kapa'akai analysis. These are difficult problems to solve, and to counter these limitations in the specific context of groundwater, we are seeking to continually monitor and incorporate feedback back into how we manage these resources. So instead of that straight line I showed earlier, we're trying to move the Kapa'akai analysis and our analysis of groundwater impacts generally into more of a circle, where we're identifying, assessing the impacts, implementing feasible measures to protect, and then going back and identifying what's changed, what new things are happening. Are our management actions actually effective? Is there anything that we need to change? And this is intended to help Seaworm carry out the intent of the Kapa'akai analysis test as adapted to suit our constitutional duty over water resources in particular. Okay, so now let's get into the adaptive management plan. We recognize the needs. We want to update the Commission's understanding of resources based on the current research. We want to protect valued cultural and ecological resources. We want to balance the protection of groundwater resources with their development and use. That's our constitutional duty as an agency. We want to base our management decisions on real data. And of course, we want to continue to learn and to improve upon our management strategy. That brings us to adaptive management, which we've identified as a promising path forward. Adaptive management focuses on continued monitoring, response, and revision. Instead of fixed assumptions, management adjusts based on real data and changing conditions, and it should be supported by scientific and cultural indicators. So scientific indicators could be things like, what is the temperature of the water at a given location? How salty is the water at a given location? Whereas cultural indicators might be something like, how has someone's practices been impacted over the past 5 years? Are the resources that someone relied on for their cultural practices changing in location? Or are they becoming less available than they were in years past? The goals of the plan are to identify significant landscapes. So for this first generation plan, we're going to focus on what are the key areas? What are the sentinel sites where we absolutely know that there are important traditional customary practices occurring? They have historical significance. What are the key places where we're going to get the best information about how these resources are being impacted? And the plan is to expand that consideration from those specific landscapes and eventually build out a larger network. we want to identify the key indicators. Like I mentioned, these could be things like salinity, temperature, the number of fish or opai or other resources that you're able to gather at a specific place. Part of this is identifying our monitoring needs. That includes deep monitor wells, but it's not limited to deep monitor wells. A deep monitor well is something that the commission uses to identify the size of the freshwater lens. Essentially, how are withdrawals impacting the amount of freshwater in an aquifer? Is the saltwater rising, which would indicate that the aquifer is starting to be depleted, or that the transition zone between fresh and saltwater is reaching a new point of equilibrium? That's an important indicator that we use to assess the health of the aquifer. But there are also other monitoring needs that we might identify throughout this process. There are other factors that might affect our indicators. So things like pollution or overfishing might also affect what we see on the ground. They're not linked necessarily to groundwater withdrawals, but they are an important thing to consider as we're trying to ensure the protection of these resources. We're trying to identify actions, triggers for action that are tied to the ecological or cultural thresholds that I mentioned, and then pre-agreed management actions, things like reducing pumping or contributing to reforestation that can help to offset or mitigate the impacts of groundwater withdrawals. Other goals are to allocate the costs of monitoring and management. So one of our commissioners expressed this as hanaya'ai. So if you feed the resources, or if you take care of a resource, you're able to sustain yourself off of that resource. I wanted to adapt that concept to this plan and to groundwater resources. So for those who are going to withdraw and make use of our groundwater resources, to allow them to contribute in some way, including the cost of monitoring those resources and ensuring that those withdrawals are not having an adverse impact. This plan, it has a regional focus. So rather than looking well by well or at a specific area, like the Kalokohonokohau National Historical Park, we wanted to expand our focus to really look at the entire Keauhou aquifer system. As I mentioned, this is going to be an iterative process. So we'll have a first generation plan, but it's not going to be our last plan. We're going to continue to improve and adapt and to add more to our monitoring network so that we can continue to improve upon the plan. So one of our major goals is to have a long-term commitment to monitoring and management. And key to this is stakeholder involvement and engagement. And that means all stakeholders. Across the board, we're trying to get a faithful cross-section of all of the interests that are at play when we talk about the groundwater resources in the Keauhou aquifer. Okay, so our process. We have planned and outlined the components of the adaptive management plan. We have convened, or we have populated an advisory panel that is responsible for taking input from our groups of experts and distilling that into the key indicators, the key locations, the key monitoring sites that we need to focus on and make sure that we're incorporating into our adaptive management plan. And that advisory panel represents a diverse group of people who all bring their own expertise to the table and will be able to help us formulate a draft plan that represents the interests at stake. Our expert groups are from 4 different areas. So those areas are Native Hawaiian, Ohana, traditional and customary practices, and Kilo, hydrology, indicator species, and ecology. So folks who are able to tell us about the biological side, folks that are able to tell us about the water side, what's going on with our water resources within the aquifer itself, as well as finally contamination and pollution. So what are the other factors that might be at play here? Contamination and pollution is not the only one, but we identified it as an important concern that the community has. You know, what are the impacts of runoff and cesspools, for example, in the health of these resources? Another important part of the process is stakeholder input. So we've done targeted outreach, we'll continue to do targeted outreach, and also have opportunities for people to provide their input in a variety of ways, including the public presentation of drafts to the commission. So we'll be coming to the commission a few months in a row with successive drafts of the adaptive management plan so that people can see these drafts before they go to the commission for approval, provide comments, and their comments can be incorporated. We do intend to have the commission approve a draft of the adaptive management plan in around November of this year. But as I continue to mention, we anticipate that there will be updates to come based on what we learn about the system, especially as we start to implement our first generation adaptive management plan. So what this enables: stronger protections for ecological and cultural resources, a better roadmap for forward movement, more accurate permitting decisions, carrying the commission's affirmative duty to protect the public trust, and a possible model for future adaptive management statewide. There are a lot of places that I think could benefit from this type of a model. Lahaina comes to mind, partially because that's where I'm from, but also places like Waianae, and other locations statewide that have the same very important rights at stake. We'd like to take this adaptive management strategy for groundwater and implement it in a lot of different areas. So Keauhou is the test or the pilot project. In future updates, we want to set the stage in this first generation plan by identifying the assumptions and the gaps in knowledge. We're not going to have all the answers, but we can say what our assumptions are, what is our hypothesis about, for example, how do these different groundwater bodies interact with each other? We might not know for sure, but we can say what our assumption is, and we can come back and see whether or not that was true as we collect more data and incorporate more research. And finally, an important goal is to share data with the public. And I saw on your agenda, or maybe it was in your minutes, that SB 1602 was being discussed. That's been signed into law as Act 189, and it creates a Keauhou monitoring pilot project. That pilot project requires us, the commission, to do a number of things, which is some of them include collecting information on groundwater levels and on salinity in the Keauhou aquifer system from our monitoring wells. But another very important thing that act requires us to do is to conduct community outreach and to share the results of what we've learned. And so not only are we required to do that by law, it is our firm desire to make sure that we're sharing the data that we have with the public to ensure transparency and that people know what is going on with their groundwater resources out in Keauhou. So with that is the end of my presentation. As I said, that was from April 1st. So a few things have happened since then. We've officially brought on our consultant, that's Peter Adler. He's with us here today. And we started populating some of these expert groups. So I think you will have received our project description that has those experts' names who have agreed to be involved with this project and contribute their knowledge to us. And in addition, you will have, I think, the outline of our adaptive management plan, which includes all of the different elements that we're planning to have present in our first generation plan. Both of these documents are continually evolving. So as we've been reaching out to people and having discussions with stakeholders, we've been getting comments back, and we are incorporating those into these two documents. So even our planning process is iterative. We're still fairly early in the overall process. Like I said, we intend to bring the draft of the first generation adaptive management plan to the commission this November. Throughout the months of August, September, and October, we'll be meeting with our expert groups and our advisory panel, and we'll be preparing successive drafts of the adaptive management plan. So, any questions?
Okay. Nancy?
I'm Nancy Pasicchio, and thank you very much, representatives from CWRM being here, and I wanted to thank Charlie, our chair, for organizing this meeting. This is the Kona Community Development Plan Action Committee, and we're supposed to be sort of the overseers of implementing the Kona Community Development Plan. And one question I had regarding Act 189 is, will CWRM be deciding the placement of those wells? Who's going to make that decision?
Yes, we'll be deciding the placement of those wells. So as we go through this planning process, we want to have our hydrologist expert group in particular opine on what are the best places to locate those wells. Of course, we're always constrained by things like land ownership. So, you know, it depends if there's state or county land or a private landowner who's willing to give us a parcel to put those wells on. But sorry, this has been a long answer to your question. The short answer is CWRM decides.
Okay, then thank you. Then will you decide like the depth too?
So because those wells are deep monitor wells, they are going to, yes. So they're
Okay,
go down into the saltwater layer. So the depth is going to be governed by however deep the saltwater is in that particular location.
this is sort of a broader question, and maybe there's no answer to this, but the Kona Community Development Plan is a regional plan for Kona, and so it's very specific to your goal in terms of the Keauhou Aquifer. All of the Kona CDP water comes from the Keauhou Aquifer, and we were trying to design the Kona Community Development Plan to implement smart growth practices and more sustainable development practices and direct urban growth into more concentrated development to be more and try to discourage sprawl and that sort of thing. But it doesn't seem like the goals of this plan are coordinated with, you know, determining where future growth in Kona should happen. Is that the Kuleana of County, and how do those things work together? Is there an answer for that?
So the key component is the county water use and development plan. So the water use and development plan is established by the county based on the intended land use, and it projects their groundwater demands and identifies where they anticipate getting source for that demand from. So that plan is prepared and by the county and approved by the commission. So the county's water use and development plan, County of Hawaii intends to do a plan just for the Keauhou aquifer system, a Keauhou water use and development plan. So I think the answer to your question is essentially that plan is kind of the link.
So once you finish the adaptive management plan, the county will follow up with their plan to conform to those standards.
Well, the adaptive management plan is separate from the county water use and development plan. Their water use and development plan is not necessarily going to flow from our adaptive management plan, but I'm sure it will be informed in some way by the adaptive management plan. Right now, they're anticipating us to give them a little bit more direction and guidance for how they should prepare their plan. So the Hawaii Water Plan is the name for this big collection of different plans. It includes our Water Resource Protection Plan, the County Water Use and Development Plans, the Agricultural Water Use and Development Plan, among others. And so that is all governed by a framework document that outlines the different requirements for those plans. That framework hasn't been updated since 2000. So our staff is working hard on updating the framework right now. They anticipate having it done by this year and ready for the commission to approve and for us to start to implement. And so after that is done, I assume that is when the Hawaii Department of Water Supply is going to start working on their water use and development plan for Keauhou.
Okay, thank you. I could keep going, but I'll stop now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had a question, Sarah, this Charlie. Is the county, I should ask them this question, but will the county, water use plan be guided by sustainable yield as well as all the other attributes in your plan? In terms of the cultural resources, instead of I'll call it a hierarchy of use, because there's Department of Hawaiian Homelands in there and Hawaiian interests that have to gain, I think, level in. So you anticipate that county will be implementing that as well within their plan, or is that something that they're gonna look to you for guidance in terms of when they make their plan?
So they are gonna, I'm sure, base their plan on our sustainable yield numbers. As far as a hierarchy of use, that's more of a question for the county, I think, not one that I can answer. The protection of traditional customary practices is something that we are emphasizing more in this update of the framework. And so while the framework isn't finished yet, I do anticipate that we'll be asking the counties to consider explicitly how their plans for water development might impact traditional customary practices and other Native Hawaiian interests, including DHHL.
Okay, well, thank you. That's what I thought. Are there any other committee members? Do you have any comments, questions for Sarah? No? Okay, if not, I'm just gonna ask people in the room first, who signed up to maybe ask questions or comments to maybe, go ahead and step forward and, so we have Loke. I think it's better if you come closer to the, microphone, yeah. Yeah, that's a microphone in the
But I can
camera.
hear you.
Okay, I don't know, can you guys see me?
I see you there.
Yeah, okay, I'm Loke, I come from Kona, my kupuna come from Kona. I'm a descendant of the Panui Ohana and the Kanehoa lineage. I'm a Ka'iloko at Kaloko Fish Pond and I just came to listen. I have more questions than anything else, so I'm happy to just be here early on in the process. But I do want to see you guys in person. So you guys, if you can, make some time to meet us in person down at the fish pond. I just gonna say that early because we've been playing tag, I think, and Ashley's been helping, but anyway. But before I start I just want to say mahalo to a few people. Not one of you folks, but I want to say mahalo to Jonathan Schuer, who really helped to bring these conversations to its current place. Paula, who used to work for the National Park Service. Researcher Oki from USGS, who did a lot of the early on studies. The EKY team, who has really helped to develop the groundwater dependent ecosystems and cultural uses. And then also most definitely to Kaleo Manuel, who really helped us holomua this conversation to its current place. So with that, I'm gonna list forward questions. I don't expect a response now. And the other thing is these things will be also submitted in writing, but for the collective of the folks who organized for Kona 2, I just want to put it before you for consideration. I'm gonna pick it up on the last point of the WDP that you mentioned. We asked for a revised version and gave very detailed comments to the Department of Water Supply for the Water Use and Development Plan. I'm gonna write to them after this, but I really appreciate something more hardline about how these plans are gonna come forward that can be put into a written document. Because it's been out of date for several years and in almost a decade, it's been in its draft form. And every developer is using it as fact, right? So we still need that plan to be updated. So if Stewart can help to kind of hash that out in relationship to the AMP, that would be really great. The second thing is the deep confined aquifer. It's hypothesized that all three of the aquifers are all related, correct? That's kind of commonly accepted. One of those things is how, if you guys can hash this out in the AMP, what exactly are you gonna do? Because developers are treating it as a separate aquifer that is not connected to the other aquifers. So that if you guys in your research model could figure out what are those standards that needs to be developed to figure that out. The third thing is the climate change and sustainable yield. Hash that out. I saw you guys did a presentation on Maui. There already is a process in place that could give us new numbers. USGS has already said that with the climate change scenario, we'll see a reduction of anything from 33 to 53% in recharge. So we have some of the baseline studies to help us form the more hardline numbers. So connected to that, I'm gonna move into the Maui water use and development plan and the Pearl Harbor water shortage plan. I'm guessing that we might be reaching a water shortage for Kona once you generate these numbers that are really more realistic with what we're looking at. So I'm curious if with that, if there should be a water shortage plan for Kona to kind of keep that on the back burner as a just in case, as well as to not only look at all of those really important components of temperature, DO, and other things like that, but also looking at the quality of water, because it's not only the flow of water, but it's also the quality of water that's going to affect us as the practitioners of the ocean or the coastal shoreline. And then moving back to the Maui water use and development plan, I'm bringing that forward because in the plan, you guys already hashed out priority users. So that is something that I'm not sure. I'm trying to put it to you, Ciara. You're the map maker, you're the one that's reading the stars, putting a plan together. Who are the priority users? And hardlining that. How is it going to be defined? Those things have already been decided for Maui, but start to hash it out. We're at a point where we kind of have to do catch up, I think, because so much have been done. And with the priority users, my request is that private wells are held to the same standard as public wells. So millionaires that are living down in the golf courses who get their own well, guess what, Sugar King? You're up for the same bidding as the commoners. You like a maka'ai na. So, how are they also going to be considered in the planning of priority users? The fourth thing is really just a question. I'm really wondering about this timeline, which you never gave us the dates, but I got it in an email. And I'm just kind of curious about how hardline is the timeline for the AMP, which is necessary. The AMP is necessary, but what are the means of flexibility for its development? And then also what are realistic achievables? There's so many discussions that have been on the back burner for a lot of different reasons for Kona's water specifically, that I'm wondering if the goals of the AMP are actually achievable within the timeline that you've provided. And what are the realistic outcomes for Kona development and Kona existing community that fits within those timelines? Because I'm tired of going up against these developers who are just throwing us under the bus and we need kokua. So if you can help them understand the process and also realistic movement of potential developments, then we can kind of get on the same page. The next one is the new data and existing data. I really am curious. I'm excited to see it all because I know you guys are putting together your guys' different teams. But I'm really wondering how you're gonna quantify mo'olelo that is already saying that we have damaged environments. I think there's a lot of kupuna who come from Kona who have already passed on, and whether they've shared through ethnographies or oral history, they've already said, no more limu, no more those runs of fish that used to run before. So how are you guys gonna quantify all the things that Kona's already lost? And then how is that gonna be considered in all the things that are gonna come from the plan too? And that's just another just curious place for me. The other thing, sorry, this is just a laundry list. I'll put it in writing, don't worry. Is the Department of Water Supply, and I didn't check on it, but the water credit audit, I think you guys are doing your part, but then also too, like if DWS can present at one of the Seymour meetings about where exactly we are with these water credits, because I keep looking at development plans with the DWS signing water agreements, and it's not outlined who has the credits, where these credits are coming from, and it's kind of treated like a private bank, but that bank is everybody's bank. That bank is the public's bank. We all have an investment in all of the water, right? So if you guys can help to Holomua, that one. The other thing I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna ask you too, is meanwhile, what about current developments? Who do I hold accountable for current developments? I'm curious, because I'm gonna be submitting a bunch of letters on the FEIS is coming out for Kona regarding water, but until you guys A&P is Paul, who is gonna be accountable for all of this stuff? You know, I'm just throwing it out there because I want to know when it comes to these cumulative impacts, right? Because all these developers, they said, you know what, CWRM gonna figure them out. So if CWRM is gonna figure that out, then I really would love to hear CWRM say that, just so I know where I need to look or who I really need to be holding accountable, or is it the developers? Guys, you know, is it both of you guys? I don't really know. I don't know. This is just more questions. The other thing, you know, is some of you guys, people that you get on your guys' team is a little bit questionable. But there's a lot of stuff that's coming out right now from developments that have already got signed agreements with the Department of Water Supply that are not using robust scientific evidence, and they're making false claims that don't have the proper scientific studies to support it, to promote pumping. And so I just want you guys, if you can, to check in on these things for us to, with the people, to hold DWS accountable, to hold these potential developments accountable, that they need to be meaningfully a part of these conversations, so that they can get more realistic potentials of where their projects might be heading. So I'm just asking you for corral the cats. Corral all the cats that think they stay in their own colony. Bring us all together, bring all of this together. And definitely, I don't expect a response for any of this. We'll submit comments with brilliant Ashley Aubrey, who is so up of mind. But come down to the pond if you guys can. There was, I don't know what happened. We were supposed to meet with you folks, and then you folks said you folks were presenting before CWRM, and you folks couldn't meet with us. And then you said, actually, you guys just got a week to meet with us. Oh, but by the way, we only ready on X day at X amount of time, and that's really hard for us as working families. But just get 1 7 day heads up, and, you know, I don't know if you can, and I know it's not the end zone. I know it's only the draft, but if you guys can come down to the pond and meet in person, I would really appreciate some of your folks having. And that is all. But yeah, thank you, everyone, and thank you to Ahomoko and Uncle folks for, you know, they wrangling plenty cats too. They did plenty things to keep eyes on. But yeah, mahalo.
Thank you.
Thank you, okay. Just one more here, Josephine Kilipio,
Yeah, I don't have anything to say to.
no? Okay. Okay, is there anyone online that indicated they wanted to have comment?
Yes, we have Chuck and then Janice after.
Chuck?
Aloha, committee members. I really apologize for missing the last couple of meetings. First of all, I really want to thank, is it Loki? Is that the,
Okay,
Wahini's name, Loki?
Yeah.
Those were great questions. Oh my gosh, that was inspiring. I guess the follow-up to that is, for Sierra, how is there going to be some sort of, in the plan, some sort of like flow chart or something that that shows the regulatory environment in which water management and plans exist, so that the public can see how the county's plans, and the data collection the county is doing and whatnot, and approvals, how they relate to the state's plans, and how those can be integrated so there's some consistency of, so there can be a clear relationship between state law and county law, and the degree to which they do or don't conflict or agree or support one another. That, and I think Loki touched on that. So I don't know if that's possible or even a part of what y'all are doing, but if that's something that Seaworm could do, that would be really great. Another question I had was, and again, you can answer it later too as well. There's existing, oh, I'm sorry, did you want to? Did you want to?
I could answer your first question.
Oh, okay, thank you, Sierra.
So it's not something that we're contemplating for the Hawaii, for the Keauhou Adaptive Management Plan. We currently have a diagram on our website. We have a little bit of information about the Hawaii Water Plan and all of its different components and how they interact with each other. I don't have at my fingertips whether this is going to be something that we're going to include in our framework update for the Hawaii Water Plan, but I think that that might be an appropriate place to kind of explore the connections between these different plans and how they interact with each other.
Okay. Following up with that, are there some sort of standards that the county has to, and we're in the process of doing our comprehensive review of our general plan, which covers everything, including, wastewater, potable water, environmental impact of water use, as well as the cultural. Are there some standards that we could put in the general plan to provide guidance on a county level as this is being created? Are you aware of any of those standards that the county must comply with, for instance? And that could actually, for instance, be put in the Kona Community Development Plan, so the action committee could have that as a resource and reference?
So right now, the standards that we have are, of course, the sustainable yield that we calculate, as well as the standards for the preparation of the county's water use and development plan.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you had in mind standards like for development or sources or what kinds of standards.
Standards that would guide development, basically, because it's a general plan document and it covers everything from historic resources to public utilities to, um, uh, yeah, it covers everything. Um, so, but related to water, especially because water is essential for life. Um, I think it's really important that one of the concerns is whether or not our general plan is going to be implementable, that it will actually, we'll have a plan, but will it be implemented? So if we have standards that the county has to follow, that will help guide us as far as creating action items for implementation of the general plan, is what I'm thinking. So I don't know if you have any ideas about that or if it's even relevant to what y'all are doing.
Yeah, so for that, I don't think that that is going to be something that comes into this Keauhou adaptive management plan because we're focused
Okay.
more on resource protection than
Okay.
on directing development to a particular location.
So with regard to data, I've got two questions. One is, are y'all going to be, there's existing SMA permits for a lot of the nearshore environments, especially like the resorts. They have water quality monitoring testing that's required. And are y'all going to be using that data or collecting that data at all? I know it's submitted to the county. I don't know if it's submitted to the state at all. But we know um, from prior studies that the county really doesn't have the resources to collect all of that information to determine if there are trends. So is this plan going to involve creating baseline studies to see if that there, what the existing environment is and to look back at these water quality monitoring to go back to when they started to see what what information and data the studies had, when the SMA permits were first, approved, like for Waikoloa, so that we can see how things have changed since that time. I think that goes to, restoration um of what's going on. And the other question, given how I'm I'm really I'm concerned about the unknown unknown subterranean geological hydrology, the geology and hydrology. You showed how there's all these different theories of how water flows. Is there any concern that that aquifers could be, given that unknown environment, that the drilling of wells is potentially can damage aquifers? And that drawing from them can I mean, given there's such an unknown environment, how are y'all gonna work? I mean, it's kind of hard. I guess what I'm saying is it's kind of hard to get the data when you're dealing with a like significant unknown factor in all of this. So I just was curious how y'all are going to be able to address that, if at all.
The monitoring wells, drilling them, generally we don't have issues with damage to the aquifer. There's, some exceptions where, especially if drilling into that deep confined aquifer, it's very important to be careful. And our groundwater branch is always careful. They're the ones who are responsible for ensuring that wells are constructed in compliance with our state well construction standards. And so that is something that we do keep a close eye on. And especially for the deep confined aquifer, very mindful that that if it needs to be done properly. So we will be keeping things like that in mind in locating these wells. As far as the water monitoring data that other folks are already collecting, we've received information from several people already that are doing monitoring, and we are happy to receive that data and use it to if it's probative to better inform our adaptive management plan. We aren't necessarily going to be able to incorporate all the data that's out there. We do have to focus on specific sites. And for this first generation plan, kind of to go back to address one of Loke's questions that I do want to get to before this meeting is through, this first generation plan is really going to be focused on a specific handful of indicators and locations that are key, that are the most critical. The focus is going to be on identifying indicators and identifying the type of monitoring that is going to give us the best information. Things like management actions, we would like to be able to establish some initial thresholds and triggers for action through this first generation plan. But the management actions themselves to be taken, they do deserve a lot of thought and a lot of discussion and deliberation. So this first generation plan, it really is going to be first generation early draft. And we're going to get to, the key sites and the focus areas with the intent to build it out later and add some management actions and some triggers.
Okay. So would y'all, when you're choosing your key sites, is the fact that SMA permit water quality monitoring historic data is available at that particular site, is that going to at all guide the location for these initial sites, or are there other factors that are involved?
There are going to be other factors involved. The availability of data is something that, well, I'm going to defer to our expert groups for the most part on this. I mean, I'm the deputy, not a scientist, so I am going to defer to the scientists on what they think is the most critical. And if the determination is that data is going to drive some of these decisions, that may be, but I think the historical significance, the cultural significance, and the ecological significance of these places is going to be one of the key areas of focus as we identify some of the sentinel sites. So,
okay, thank you. Thank you. I won't take any more time. Thank you, Charlie, for your patience.
Thank you, Chad. Anyone else online?
Janice.
Janice? You're on mute if you're trying to speak.
She looks like she left.
She left, okay.
Um,
Anyone else online?
Hey, Charlie, thank you. I'm sorry. I was just out of just stepped away from the computer for a second. Thank you. I didn't have anything to say, but I wanted to really thank the public. The questions were fantastic and the presenters too. Mahalo.
Thank you. Anyone else online? I did want to come, first, thank you, Sarah and staff for taking your time. As Nancy said, we are, housed under the county planning department and you're housed under the state DLNR. So we're looking for that connection, between what you all are gonna be doing, at the level of your responsibility and how that then can translate into something that we as citizens and residents of this county can help the county and assist the county in, as well. So it's great to know, it's great to know what the adaptive management plan is going to strive for. But there's gonna be some missing elements, and I think we all in the room have to understand that, our job is gonna be at the county level, primarily to focus the county in, as well, so that we all get to the goals that we wanna get to. But I really appreciate your time. Go ahead, Nancy.
I'd like, this is Nancy again. Thank you again, and thanks for wonderful questions. But I do think what a lot of us are feeling is that there's a lack of coordination between more reactive monitoring, whether there's increased salinity or decreased freshwater flow or different types of data that you're getting from a reactive standpoint. And also the term was used earlier, priority users, and maybe when an adaptive management plan is completed, that can later help determine who the priority users should be. And for example, individual developer applicants as compared to implementing, sustainable community planning, more proactive planning. I think that somehow we have to tie those two things together in terms of long-range sustainable growth as compared to just reacting to damage. We don't want to just be reacting to damage. We want to try to look ahead and what are sustainable plans for the future of the community, and how can we assure that we're not damaging the resource, but also that we're supplying for future growth in a sustainable manner. And it's so there's the county on one hand and the state on the other hand, and it seems like that's not being connected well enough. And maybe when an adaptive management plan is created and updated, and I know it's adaptive, it has the flexibility of being ongoing, but it seems like that these components are gonna have to come together better. So that's more of a speech than a question, but it's something that's, I think, for all of us is sort of hanging there, ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate that feedback.
Are there any other comments or questions from anyone in the house? Well, if not, I want to thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you in Kona at some point in time in the future. Yeah, great. Thank you all.
If you think there's any reason to help, if you would like us to help do any other public meetings or organize any larger public meetings where you want more groups of people from the community to come and listen at some stage, we'd be happy to help facilitate that. I don't know if that's your plan in the long run, but if you do, then, I'd be willing to assist in that type of thing in the future.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's great. Yeah, I'll let you know. That is definitely something that we're going to be looking to do down the line. So, and thank you, Charlie, for having us.
Charlie, may I just make one? There's a 2006 water quality study that the University of Hawaii Hilo Marine Sciences Department did, working with the county. The county employed them, and they took all of the And that was the reason I was asking my earlier question, is that they collected all of the SMA permit water quality monitoring data, and they put together a report. And so if you could, if I could get your email address, I can send that to you. It's from 2006, but it does contain a lot of information that probably would assist y'all in identifying areas.
Awesome. Yeah, you can get my email address, I think, from Charlie.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. We good? Okay, if there's no more comments or questions, then we are gonna close this business item. And again, many thanks to you all who were able to, and I'm thinking this is one of the first get-togethers you've given, at least on Hawaii Island, and so we greatly appreciate it.
Mahalo. Hui ho.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's closed. There's two other things on the business. It's not on the business, it's just public testimony on matters not on the agenda. Yeah, and that's to remind the public that if we have any,
If anyone has any more testimony, this one.
yeah, okay, just in general. Yeah, okay. I think we got all the comments already, at least. Okay, and
Does that
So-
cover announcements also, Charlie? I'm sorry, this is Chuck Flaherty.
yeah, we're gonna get to announcements.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then there's third-party reports from government officials. No. New business, we want to talk about potential agenda for the next meeting. Can we defer that till after the announcements? Okay, let's defer that till after the announcements. So the announcements are environmental notice, University of Nations Kona Master Plan Update, final EIS. And the planning department is currently seeking applicants for the Kona CDP. There's an update on that, isn't it?
They're going in front of council tomorrow.
Okay. Did everyone hear that? Okay, great. Chuck, did you have something? Oh, sorry, Janice, you have your hand up now.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes, I wanted to, about the University of the Nations, yes, their proposal. I don't know if this is the proper time to comment on it, but I just thought I'd bring it up, is that it seems that it's in an area that has been talked about, argued over often for other developments for being underserved by infrastructure. I think the same issues are going to apply. I hope that the public stays aware of this and does try to comment on the EIS. I'm not sure what the process is myself, but I'm glad that you guys brought it up. I think it's really critical. As much as we want density in the core, we are still, once again, far, far behind in concurrency. And all the water issues, all the road issues, all of it comes together, culminates when we have a proposal like this. And I really hope that the public stays hyper aware. And once again, I don't know what the procedure with the timing is going to be, but I hope that the action committee does get a chance to discuss it or make comments like they have on other important projects like Kona 3 vistas. I think that's very similar in a way because the area is very linked. So thanks for letting me say that.
Thanks, Janice. Chuck?
Yes, with regard to the EIS, I did review that, and I just a couple of things I wanted to note. One is working with Auntie Ruby McDonald when she was with OHA. That's a very culturally significant area, and I was very disturbed by the cultural impact assessment and archaeological impact inventory survey and the preservation plan.
Yes.
It seems like that genie may already be out of the bottle. I don't know. But another thing is the state land use commission approval for the redistricting of that land. they said that they were going to have a major Kanaka Maoli cultural center there, and that it described a very significant cultural center there, and I don't see that anywhere in the current proposal that's being put forth in the EIS.
Yeah. Chuck, it's under announcements, not under the agenda, so we can't dig too much into detail. Maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
No
apologize.
worries, no worries.
So the announcement I wanted to make was that the county council, the county council's policy committee on planning, land use, and economic development is having a special meeting tomorrow night at 5 p.m. On the general plan. If you go online to the planning department and go to click on, it'll pop up. You can view the plan. There's a new draft that has incorporated many of the Leeward and Planning Commission's recommendations, not all of them, but many of them. Unfortunately, they didn't indicate which ones have been added. So it's kind of hard. Again, it's like, so there's Bill 66 is what's on the agenda. You can testify either on the draft plan that was put forth to the planning commissions that was submitted in July 2024, or you can submit testimony on the draft 2 plan that's being put forth in a separate communication, but that the county council is also going to be looking at. It's very confusing. It took me 3 days to figure it out. So I just hope that people, if you have any issues or concerns, you'll show up at 5 o'clock tomorrow evening to testify on the general plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. I just wanted to finish my thought on the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, on the University of Nations, that maybe it's worth putting on the agenda at some point in time. So if we care to get into the details, we can go ahead and discuss it further. Okay, so that's for announcements.
I've got one.
Go ahead.
Regarding the general plan, if you recall, the action committee approved general plan amendment for the planning structure on page 32. And we didn't have anywhere to send it because the document hadn't been referred to council yet, and it didn't have a bill number. So since it has a bill number, then this morning our testimony went into the planning committee regarding that echelon of priorities of planning documents, where the general plan goes in first and the CDPs go in second, and instead of being lost in all the different sorts of plans and functional plans that the county has, so the staff got Charlie did the cover letter and staff sent in our testimony this morning. So the general plan, apparently, according to schedules, they're gonna be deliberating for months and months and months. So I was sort of questioning strategy-wise when the best time to submit our testimony, whether it was better to just get it in right away or wait, but we've got it in probably one of the first ones to get submitted. So, but thanks staff for getting it done. Thanks Charlie for signing it.
Charlie, just also as part of the announcement, it's very, very, very important actually, and I'm sorry this is a big detail. So the first section they're covering is the collaborative biocultural stewardship portion of the plan. And the meeting on the 9th tomorrow night, and then they're going to have one on the 29th. And then supposedly they're going to approve whatever amendments they're going to make to that section and send it back to the planning commission for further review. But I think that it's a really short time for a very, very important section. So anyone that that has any issues related, when they say biocultural, they're talking about anything that relates to it's basically environmental, cultural, socio-cultural issues that you have with the general plan. So thank you for allowing me to further clarify that.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, that's it. Announcements, we'll close that. So new business, potential agenda items for next meeting, which is August.
Participó.
Well,
I should have updates for Tracy.
Tree City, okay, great.
So Tree City USA, that'll be one. Should we put the general plan on there just so we can?
Let's
keep
put it on just for
Okay,
discussion,
general-
because we don't know where we're gonna be in that point.
Do you think we should put the open space plan on? Do you think the consultant is gonna have any updates by next meeting?
Uh-huh.
Sorry, what was that?
Does Miriam have any? Should we put the open space plan on the agenda next month, or what do you think?
Hi, Nancy. I think the consultants were needing about a month or so to go through all of the feedback that they received and kind of compiling all that together. Do you want Jacobs to come in and kind of talk about that at the next meeting? We're looking at July,
Well,
August
we can,
12th.
maybe can ask them if they feel like they're ready, and then if they are, then we can add it.
Yeah, we can reach out to them and see how it goes.
Okay,
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
Yep.
Okay. I don't have any other ideas at the moment, but we've got 3 weeks, to put the agenda together. So I would urge committee members, if you have anything you want to add to next month's agenda, to get it into us or into planning, so we can make sure we get it on there. Okay. That concludes our business, which is record time. So we can move for adjournment. For discussion.
Make a motion for adjournment.
Any non-agenda items?
Public, I asked earlier, do you have something you wanted to speak on?
Little bit,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay,
Why don't you come so that
Yeah.
the speaker can hear you?
okay, so it's not related to what was said at this meeting, but it still bothers me because I'm one of those that have been getting the Helco PSPS announcements a lot. And right now, they're telling us that, be on the alert, they're gonna turn off our electricity as soon as they find out that, we're in danger of a wildfire, okay? And, that kind of bothers me because, of what happened, just happened in Miley on Oahu. I don't know if you know, big fire broke out, and I don't know if you know where Miley is, but that's on the dry area, they had wind and this fire broke out. And then when they interviewed different officials, they said that Helco didn't even initiate the PSPS program when the fire broke out. They initiated it afterwards, okay, after the fire was going. Okay, so I'm wondering, why is Helco on this island and in Maui, but mainly on this island, because I'm here and I'm getting these announcements. Why are they so gung-ho on alerting us of a potential for them to turn off the electricity when it's raining, has been raining on my side, and I happen to be in a supposedly a fire hazard area, my neighborhood. So I'm and I'm wondering why are they so dead set on wanting to turn off the electricity and telling us that, because of the wind conditions and the dryness, when we haven't been suffering from dryness for like 3 months, over here. And what happened was on Saturday, they sent out a morning notice that they're gonna do that. Then in the afternoon, they changed their mind and canceled it. But as soon as Civil Defense gave us a warning on Sunday morning that we're gonna have some high winds for Sunday and Monday, yesterday. Then they initiated their PSPS, Helco initiated their PSPS warning to us again yesterday, and they said it'll last from Sunday to Monday, okay? Monday is yesterday, okay? But they didn't end there. Today they issued and said, we're still on PSPS, alert. We're gonna shut off the electricity. And what bothers me about the shutting off the electricity is, what part of the electricity are they going to shut off they're gonna shut off the water, the water pump so that we can't put out fire. So that's my concern. You know, I don't expect you guys to answer anything. It's just a concern because I'm part of this Kona community and that's what's going on with me. And then I don't think everybody else gets these notices. You know, okay, you don't get it? Yeah,
I've gotten them.
huh? Are you in the fire hazard area?
I'm in Hulula, not really, but I'm still getting them.
Yeah, well, it bothers me because it's almost like they just want to shut us off and they know something we don't know. You know, and they're like, as soon as that wildfire activates, they're shutting us off, you know? And that bothers me because, you know, on the other hand, civil defense is I'm on their list, you know, to get the weather report and stuff. And they're letting us know what the weather is like and you know, and we know what the weather is like. It's been raining for 3 months, right? You know, there's no drought here. And yeah, civil defense does not come through with the weather report as much as they should. And they claim that it's because of National Weather Service. It is not, you know, I guess giving them updates regularly. You know, but I did check with National Weather Service this morning and they had nothing about a drought or windy conditions for 96740. So nothing, you know, no drought, no wind, you know. But Helco's over there saying we're gonna shut you guys down. And anyway, I wanna just throw that out there because I know that not everybody's getting that email and those notices and it bothers me because, you know, because they keep talking about a wildfire. So, you know, and the wildfire is obviously a reality. I mean, it's happening in Miley. You know, you know, now they got it 100% contained, but, you know, it's hopping around from island to island, soon to be on this island.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I'll be there. I got one notice from Helco and that's all that I got
Well-
via mail, just saying that they have the option to, not that they're gonna shut it off, but they retain the option to do that in case of an emergency.
Did you get it over the weekend?
No, I got one letter from it, that's all.
When, long time ago?
Oh, yeah, came with my bill along.
Yeah, so
So I'm not
most,
sure why you're getting all of those, but
well, I'm on Royal Poinciana Drive and you know what?
yeah.
You know what? I've been living there for 30, going on 40 years. I've been living there. I didn't know I was in a fire hazard area until a few months ago when I was maybe looking at the general plan and opened up the map for this fire hazard thing, and lo and behold, my whole area down there is in this fire hazard thing. So then I had to contact this the committee that put this fire map together. I found somebody to talk to and she starts describing, yeah, we put this all together. I don't know how many years ago, okay? And that the reason why they put it together was, oh, your houses are all snug together and you know, you have the way the roadway is. I mean, she almost described it like I lived on Lahaina Luna Road in Maui, you know, and that floored me. And I didn't know, and I've been, like I said, I've been living there for 36 years and didn't know anything about that fire hazard thing. You know, and it bugs me. You know, it really bugs me because it's almost like they're targeting my neighborhood now for the next wildfire. That's what I'm looking at. And we know who owns Elko, Vanguard and BlackRock. Anyway, I want to just put that out there. You know, that something's up, that most of you guys don't know about these messages that's a few of us are getting.
Thank you.
anyway, it's.
I don't think there's too much we can do about it.
I know, and there's so many other issues to resolve. too.
Well, also, it's just not within the Kona CDP's, I don't think there's any triggers in there I think you should go to Helco and talk to them.
Yeah.
Well, this is all related to your smart growth plan, okay? You know what they're trying to do, right? You guys know what they're trying to do, right? And you can see it, you can see what they're trying to do in LA, right? They went into LA and what? They burnt down Malibu and all the Palisades and everything. Because the next plan is for them to do a smart growth plan in there and shove people into their 15-minute smart cities. That's the plan. Then Newsom came right out and said it. As this fire, they were putting out the fire. He goes, welcome to smart LA. He's gonna turn all of that into smart cities. So that to me is the future of every place else that where the wildfires are. Like Lahaina, same with Lahaina. You guys know about Lahaina, right? The Governor Green was already having meetings in Lahaina to implement a smart growth, a 15-minute city in Lahaina.
I think, Josephine, we're getting a little beyond the
Yeah.
Kona CDP right now. There are
Yeah.
other folks that are still here that may want to talk about
Okay,
some
yeah.
of the agenda items that are still. I think I appreciate you coming to talk, but I think we've talked about this issue enough for this moment.
Yeah, I mentioned smart growth because you mentioned it when you were talking to them.
Well, I don't know anything about what they're doing in Malibu, but anyway, thank you.
No, that's all related, all related. Okay, thanks.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, are there any other comments?
And does anybody have any more comments regarding our discussions today? No? Okay, thank you for coming and thank you, okay, for the issues you brought up. It was really good that you came today and raised those questions. I hope they get back with you. My goodness, they should come down to the pond and talk to you. Maybe you can encourage them.
I have email encouraging them. Yeah, you saw my email though, you were on the list, I thought. Ashley wrote something. No, maybe, yeah, I replied.
Community advisory committee, aren't you?
I don't know, yeah, I guess, but which, there are two. Well, we haven't adjourned yet, but I'll come back. The outreach is somewhat targeted, they're going to talk to very unique places. And then some are very broad, so this would be like the broad one, so we're trying to reach the community. But there are things very specific that Loke wants them to look at. And so that's why they're trying to set up meetings with like individuals in specific areas with specific sort of ideas, and not opening that up to to a big general discussion that's going to take away from the importance of the of place, because that's the Hawaiian side of their approach.
Well, the pond and the national park and the pond and the anchoring pools are such important indicators, because
That's right.
they know from their historical experience with those resources, how much the groundwater impacts those. So not only does it have, cultural significance, but also it's
Well-
really significant in terms of the, measuring the environmental changes to those ecosystems. And so talking to those folks, there aren't very many places along the stretch of coastline where it's that evident.
Yeah, right, so Sarah mentioned that the selection of where the wells are gonna be influenced by the importance of the area in which they're drilling it. So it's gonna be up to us to determine where those important and influence them, hence the outreach. So what Loki determined was that it's very important where she is, and I think.
Yeah, well, not
Jeff,
only
it's got
is that,
Hopefully, but there's other areas too. There's other areas that they need to be, concentrating on as well. And then other areas that maybe they're not gonna get the good information because There are some places that are really degraded already, and I'm not so sure what a baseline there is gonna do. But you've got people working at Coloco, you've got people taking care of it. So all things, and that's just one area, there's a whole bunch down the way.
And also they admitted that the 2013 petition that the National Park Service to have the aquifer and designated as a management area was one of the things that sort of motivated them to start this process. So
Yeah.
the park was an important catalyst for this whole
Right.
process.
But for some reason, CWRM didn't approve it,
Mhm.
and that was probably due to influence. I'm gonna guess,
Due to what?
influence?
It took him, when I was reading up on that, it took him 3 years to make that decision. I thought that was interesting. It took so long. And
Yeah. So this opens up a new chapter in how we, how we interact with an agency that's outside the county, and maybe how we can bring them together with the county, because the county is more place-based here in terms of the decisions they make.
the county's plans are so outdated.
Well, so we'll help the county there. Anyway, can I
Oh,
get,
and the other thing, you mentioned, water credit audit. Did you know about, Holeka Inaba's bill?
I never followed up, but there's so much to follow, so I'm just making sure all the conversations are converging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he got that legislation and he's requested the water department to do an audit of all of that. And we were thinking about inviting him here to talk about what he hopes to get from that. So he did that about a month ago.
yeah,
And it's way overdue as well. And I was really glad that he did that.
yeah. Well, I think we're getting some traction in the county, so we're moving in the right direction, but it's still gonna take a lot of work and time. If there's no other comments,
Anybody on Zoom that wants to say anything?
No, thank you very much. I appreciate your volunteer service.
Thanks, Chuck.
yours as well, Chuck. Okay, are we good? Can I get a move for adjournment? Motion.
I motion we adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion, second. I'm
I'll
gonna
second it.
second it. Okay, great. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
for being
staff.
here.
Thank you, staff, and present and also online and.
Yeah, thanks everyone. See y'all.
Yeah.